So originally, I was just going to start with the News of the World movie review and also the uh, was the other One Night in Miami review, as I discussed in the collaboration video. But this review was slated to come out like later, but I have to talk about this movie because there is so many things that I take issue with, and I just feel the need to talk about it now because in particular of what its subject is, and that film is Locked Down. Now, we talked about Lockdown not too long ago on this channel when the trailer came out, and I said at that time that I don't think that it's right now to be fast tracking projects like this. You know, because the script was developed in like 2 months, and like the cast and everything got everything in 2 months, and then they filmed it in I believe 2 months, I think, or so, or less than a month or so. Um, and um, I I said I had a lot of things to say with Songbird, but now I have things to say with Lockdown, since it's being the second mainstream COVID film out there now. Um, and to set up what Lockdown is about a couple, if you could guess by the title, it's about a couple that's in quarantine. The couple has gone through a fallout. They don't really want to be with each other anymore. And through certain circumstances, they obviously find, the stuff they like about each other still. They find they still love each other, and there's a heist also somewhere, so that they choose to get into at some point. So now, if it sounds a little all over the place, that's pretty much how the film felt to me because the movie was pitched based on the trailer to be a heist film. That's what the movie was based, basically what it's set up to be. Um, and Directed by Doug Liman, of course, who did Edge of Tomorrow, one of the Bourne movies. He also did Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which kind of just to compare and contrast. Um, and Lockdown is just, how do I say this? Lockdown is it. It's a better example than Songbird is, and why I believe fast tracking this type of content is not right. And I'm gonna list all the examples why, story wise, why this stuff does not work for film because it shows so poorly itself to the viewer. Um, because there are so many things wrong with this movie. First off, the first thing that I knew it was going to be an issue going in. I didn't realize how bad an issue it was going to be, which is the dialogue. It is super stale, and it almost in every way feels completely rushed. I think that at some points there's improv because it really sounds like a lot of the work being done here is improv. I really wouldn't be surprised if I heard behind the scenes stuff if it really was because it's just a bunch of big, elongated, quote unquote intellectual statements that more sound stupid than anything. Um, they make these characters sound more ignorant and sound more like jerks than funny or anything like that. Which the dialogue is trying to make us do, is trying to make us laugh, is trying to make us feel compelled, but it doesn't. It makes us feel just annoyed because it's just these elongated statements and it's just they don't go anywhere, and they make me feel absolutely disconnected from these characters, which is another thing about the movie that I found extremely unlikable is the characters themselves. Um, I found the chemistry between Anne Hathaway and Chiwetel Ejiofor to be very forced. I thought individually they were fine. I thought they did okay. Um, but in terms of the chemistry, I thought that they were very forced together. I thought the delivery from both these actors, mainly from Anne Hathaway, was really awkward. There's this really fast pace of delivery that mainly Anne Hathaway is choosing to do, and it just does not work for me. It just completely annoyed me every time that I was listening to her. I was just like hoping that she would slow down, but really it gets like at some points it gets faster, and I'm thinking to myself, why? Why is she doing this? I mean, I understand probably production wise. Like, are they like asking her like, hey, listen, we only have a few more days before we have to go into lockdown again. Can you kind of make the go to just make your dialogue a little bit faster? Go a little bit faster, um, because all that comes from Doug Liman, and that's one of the bigger victims. The biggest flaw with the film. is, of course, Doug Liman, because the direction is super awkward and very inconsistent. Because obviously the world that we have in lockdown is, of course, COVID-19. Um, but this movie does not understand, which is where I get to my bigger issue with the film and how I started off this video, which was I don't want these movies to exist. I don't want these fast-tracked COVID-19 films to exist because for the novelty of them being filmed during COVID-19. I don't want that to be the case because um, sometimes for the sake of doing um, movies, just because you're in COVID-19, it doesn't mean that you're going to add any authenticity to it, especially when you're not committing to what the pandemic is, because this film has no care for the rules of COVID-19. I mean, the number one rule of COVID is to wear a mask, okay? Wear a mask everywhere. Well, for this movie's logic, it's you wear a mask sometimes, only when you really need to. There are entire scenes where no one is wearing a mask at all. Like literally no one is wearing a mask. And these are like in big public areas. Like we're at a mall at some point and literally nobody's wearing a mask except one dude in the background. Um, so which leads to my biggest question. Why have COVID be a part of the plot if it's not that important? Is it just to bait the viewer? Is it just to have people come in and find some quote unquote relatability to your project because now you have COVID in the project? Why is it in here if you don't care to have it be a part of the plot? Okay, why does that a bunch of characters around here can just be free to walk around the streets without a mask and um why is that a thing in this movie? Why are we seeing that happen? Especially when a part of your movie relies on the pandemic, but you're not even committing to that world to begin with. You know what I'm saying? Like these inconsistencies, it just bothers me to no end when I was watching the film. And the other thing about it is that the atmosphere is absolutely odd. There's really not that many music cues in the film, and I was hoping they would hit a few more. Towards the end, we do get a little bit more, but um, a lot of it's very empty, and I don't understand why that direction was made. Maybe it was because they want to present the emptiness that is with being in lockdown, but I didn't feel that at all. I just felt the awkwardness being presented through both these characters, and just trying my hardest, not trying not to like scream at the screen because the movie was pitched to be a heist. Okay, let me put it in perspective. We do not get to the heist until an hour and 20 minutes in, and keep in mind this is a solid 2-hour film. So we're not even in this thing until like I would say that in the third act. In the first 2 acts, you're with it's honestly a bunch of dribble. Like the first 40 minutes are absolute dribble. You can get rid of those 40 minutes entirely, and you could have started at a different point because the first 40 minutes is just a bunch, again, elongated, long-winded, quote unquote intellectual statements that really amount to nothing. And they just they don't hold any weight, and they just make you more frustrated as a result. Um, and above all else, the biggest, one of the, in my opinion, the biggest issue I take with this movie is the message. The message is this, which this is what I believe lockdown. The message is this: live dangerously. Live dangerously during a pandemic. That's a very dangerous message to be putting out there for this moment in time, okay? Obviously, yes, I've always said it and I'll say it again. Everything is subjective, especially opinions and all that stuff. But to put out a message like that right now, that's very dangerous to put out. And um, I don't think that that is something to put out right now. And I think that that is very um, irresponsible on the director's part to really think that way. I don't care that it was at a different point in time when they filmed this. I don't care if it was early in the COVID stages. Even then, you don't pitch a message like that to the viewer. That's just irresponsible in my particular opinion. That's wrong. That's not right. And I would have gone for a completely different angle with this movie for this movie. And because all around, there's just so many issues with this film narratively that really take you out of the experience. It constantly chooses to have these elongated statements that amount to nothing, and they make you just absolutely annoyed, coupled with unlikable characters, very awkward direction, inconsistent atmosphere, and just absolute dribble for the first two acts. That really, the movie should have started where in the third act and then present elements within the heist, not just let us sit in this room for like 2 hours and have us annoyed with this type of direction. We should have started with the heist, or hell, like give us like, I don't know, like 10, 15 minutes of development and then start the heist. And then within the heist, we can have these personal moments. That's how you build character and still have engagement at the same time versus having this, which is just a bunch of statements. Now, I know that sounds strange because I like that type of filmmaking, but when it amounts to nothing, again, these statements really boil it down. They're saying one thing. They're not saying a bunch of things. They're not trying to be layered. They're not trying to say this and that. They're just bullshit statements. I mean, they're like the type of statements that make you want to punch somebody because they're acting like a jerk. They're not acting like they're intellectual. They're not acting like they have something big on their mind. They're acting like a dick, and you want to punch them in the face. And that's kind of how I felt with these characters when they were talking to each other. I was like, guys, just get to the point. Like, really, get to the point. I don't care. Um, anymore. I just want to hear what you got to say and then move on. Okay? So, and as I said again, why is COVID a part of these movies? Why do we need to incorporate COVID in the film if we are not willing to incorporate COVID in the film? You know, why is COVID existing within these movies if they don't really matter? Again, I watched the movie. There is a whole mall scene where people are just walking around with no mask on, and then there's that one dude in the background that's wearing a mask. Like it's like, where is the consistency? Where is the care? Like, and again, above all else, that message, living dangerously, very, very irresponsible on the director's part for putting out a message like that, especially for a time right now. So, um, as I said, lockdown proves again that making films right now from the ground up, that I mean, not ones that have already been in development for a long time and then COVID hit on them. I'm saying from the ground up, like we're in COVID, someone wrote a script, fast tracked it into production for the sake of just doing it. Okay? Doing something like that, as we saw with Songbird, and now we're seeing again with Lockdown, it is not worth it because the consequences are many for both us and the storytellers. Because what we're left with is a hollow, boring, awkward, and completely rushed premise that just overstays its welcome in every sense of the word and desperately needs another draft, another cut, another everything. As it is, it's just an odd mess that has no business being produced, especially in what it's trying to get across to its viewer, which I contend is both dangerous and completely irresponsible.